So hello and welcome back to Ant Holleufer. Today we are taking a look at the Myrmica Rubra colony. This is the second episode. If you haven't seen the first one, link in the top right corner. Trying a new setup once again because I'm still trying to figure out what setup works best. So before we get into the video, I will ask a question at the end of the video where I would really like to hear your opinion with some of the plans and some other small problems I'm facing. But let's jump straight into the video. So quite a lot of things have changed since last episode, especially with the whole bedding situation. So I ended up buying some Springtails because I didn't feel like the brown ones that I had gotten from the nature was enough. And that's why the whole bedding situation has been changed a lot. This is the bedding that the Springtails came in. There's now around 1 centimeter of this layer. So the vegetation has grown quite a bit, especially around this one plant. I don't know, I have cut back a little bit, but I might change that in the future. So I also added in a protein jelly of sugar jelly of some kind, and the ants actually seemed quite interested in it. After a few days I did notice a little bit of mold, as you see beside the ant, and I ended up taking it out. I think the reason I got some mold was I watered it on top, and the first few days of this colony there was a very high humidity in there, and I'm trying to get it a little bit down so the ants have enough humidity, but the mold doesn't have enough humidity. But where did the ants end up settling? They of course end up settling the worst possible place, behind this plant right here. And why is it the worst? Well, it's because there's a window right beside me and I can't record the ants at all. So I'm not sure why the ants ended up settling here, but my thought is that after I dug down the plant, there were a little air place all around the plant where the ants quickly moved down and got into the dirt. And this is where the sun hits if we have some sunny days, and that means there's a lot of humidity and there's a lot of heat. As far as I know, that's why they decided to move in there. So of course it's quite hard to see them here, but luckily this is a natural formicarium. You're not supposed to see the ants' nest, so it doesn't really bother me that much yet. If we're taking a look at how the rest of the formicarium has been doing, pretty much all of the isopods have ended up being killed, or at least they have died. I have seen so many skeletons of them, or exoskeletons. So I think initially I put in around 10 to 15, and I'm pretty sure there's only 1 or 2 alive now. So the ants have been pretty busy hunting them down. I actually didn't intend for this to happen, but it did. So Myrmica rubra is a very aggressive species, and well, that's probably why it happened. So Myrmica rubra colonies doesn't have one graveyard, but they kind of just put their deads all over the place and their trash all over the place. That's of course pretty annoying. What's more annoying is that the ants can't seem to put the dead bodies some random places. I just keep seeing them walking around with bodies of ants, and I can go out in the morning and seeing one ant carrying a dead worker all around the place, and in the afternoon, pretty sure the same worker is still carrying this dead ant all over the place. I mean, the colony is doing good, as far as I can see. There's a lot of activity outside, and every time I've fed the ants, they have been very active and very happy, and they haven't really tried to escape that much except for the first day, so I think they are happy in here. So now where we have had a general update on how the colony is doing, I felt like I needed to. I wanted to do a little time lapse of when they are eating a superworm, because they are so aggressive and they're just swarming the superworm and it looks so amazing. But when the morning when I wanted to do the time lapse, I found a big spider and I gave it to them without really thinking. It was morning, I was not really awake, and I gave a spider to them. So this was the spider I gave them around an hour before recording. I didn't really think about why I did this, because I did actually want to do a time lapse of the superworm that I would give them. But I gave them a spider for some reason. I still don't really know why I did. Here's some cool time lapses of the spider. So the ants were very quick to get a hold of the spider and just carry it away. This was the first time I did a proper time lapse on the camera, so I learned a lot, and I also know what I'll do different for next time. But as you see, the spider just gets carried away very quickly until it ends up over at this plant where they are living at. And over at this plant it kind of just stood still and got demolished. I'm not sure why the ants didn't take it through the plant, but I guess they are just not really clever enough to do that. So now it was time for my proper time lapse, a 1 hour time lapse of the ant eating this superworm that I've cut out to small pieces. And started the time lapse and realized that the smallest piece of the superworm hadn't hit the dish and was now beside the feeding dish, so I changed my time lapse, and as you see there's a lot of activity around the little small piece outside of the feeding dish, but not a lot of activity on the inside. This was my mistake, and I think I'll redo this experiment in my next video maybe. But all in all, I can't really say that it's going bad for this colony. As far as I can tell, everything is okay on the ant side. I have some questions that I would like you, the viewer, to help me with. And the first thing is that how should I tackle the vegetation on the inside of this formicarium? Should I cut it down so there isn't a lot of vegetation? Or should I let it grow a little bit more freely? Or should I just go all out and don't do anything and just see all these plants spread all around the place? I am personally aiming for kind of keeping the plants pretty hard down so they won't disturb our view of the ants, but I'm open to hearing why maybe you want to do something else. So my next question is a bit more serious. So when the ants have gotten their food, I have just taken it outside of the feeding dish a few days later and put it down to the dirt so the springtails could eat it. They seem to be doing it quite kind of slow, since some of the mealworms have already gotten a little bit mold, and those I have decided to remove. And also, as you see here on this rock, there's also a little bit of whitish snow. I tried to scratch it off to see what it was. Not quite sure if it was a bit of mold or what, but I'm definitely sure that I will stop watering them as much as I have done originally. But here's my question. What should I do with the pieces of mealworms? Should I take it out when the ants are done feasting on them? Or should I just leave it to rotten with the springtails? I mean, that is why I have springtails in the formicarium. But I'm not sure that they are fast enough. At least the mold have been able to catch up with some of the pieces. And again, I have taken those pieces out. But what should I do? I would really appreciate it if you left a comment down below. As I talked about earlier, this isn't really a question, but do you have any advice on what to do with these ants that just keep walking around with their dead bodies? Again, if you have any suggestions, please leave it in the comments below. But yeah, that's been it for this update. I hope you liked the video. I'm still very happy for this colony. It's just so amazing to just watch all of this action, and just all the time I look inside, there's just life everywhere. So I hope you like this Myrmica Rubra update number 2. I am a little bit in doubt of what to do with the whole plant situation and the small mold outbreaks. They are under control for the moment, but I'm scared that we'll have another mold incident. I think the reason most of the mold came was that I was on a 2-day vacation where I had to put my lid on. So you have the lid over here, and that's simply because I have cats, and this fence I have right here, I don't really trust the cats with that fence if I ain't home for 3 days. So I put the other lid on, and there isn't really any ventilation when the lid is on, so I think the humidity was just 99 for 3 days straight. I mean, normally it is at around 60 to 80 like right now. So I think that's why the mold came out so quick. I hadn't noticed any mold before the vacation, but now when I'm home again, there's good ventilation, and I think the mold is pretty much over. But I would still like to hear what you think about leaving the small pieces within the colony to kind of deal with it its own. I mean, again, as I talked about before, the Springtails are here to stop the mold and stop all of this and break down the exoskeletons and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm curious, what do you want? So don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video if you have anybody that might be interested in watching some Myrmica Rubra fire ant action. And yeah, that's been it for this video. Bye!